The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Great to be back. Made our way back from Iowa. A little baseball over the weekend. And wow, as we talked Friday, Elijah, the storm clouds were very real for Pat Fitzgerald. We hit on it with the Saturday morning digital edition. And lo and behold, 6 p.m., 6:05 last night after you and Brady got done rocking and rolling the Monday edition of Hail Varsity Radio. Statement out, Pat Fitzgerald dismissed his head coach, and we have plenty of thoughts on that. Also, baseball on our mind, not only the Fall Classic tonight or the Midsummer Classic. Let me check that. The Midsummer Classic. Joba Chamberlain going to be with us, standout Husker and New York Yankee World Series champion. Joba going to talk about the Huskers headed off to MLB through the draft and thoughts on Ohtani and other things as we hit pause during the Major League Baseball regular season. So Joba with us in about 15 minutes. We'll chat with him. In hour two, dear friend of the program, got to go all the way back to the Average Joe Sports Show days, and a really decorated journalist and sportsman, Mike Reilley. Not that one, our Mike Reilley. Mike Reilley has covered sports for a lot of his career, has also spent a number of days in the classroom with the journalism college at Northwestern, and Mike Reilley knows Northwestern better than most. He will be with us at 5:05. His reaction to the Coach Fitzgerald dismissal. So going to spend some time with Riles here at 5:05, get his take on things. And Reilley, of course, worked in Chicago with the Sun-Times, also the LA Times. So Mike's been around the media world a lot in his career, also in the academic world. So Mike Reilley with us and his connection to Northwestern as he was there. I mean, he covered Northwestern back in 95. Covered Northwestern through the gambling scandal you heard Coach Barnett talk about earlier this month. And now you have just big issues at Northwestern football with the dismissal of Pat Fitzgerald and the sexualized hazing. A lot of questions yet to be answered. Rob Zatechka joins us, Husker standout, part of the pipeline, all-world offensive lineman for the Big Red. We'll dive into some Husker football and talk some O-line and locker room culture with Dr. Rob around 5:25. Numbers to dial up. Get involved with us, 489-1240. 489-1240 is the phone numbers. Can also jump in the stream, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Can submit your comments, questions, thoughts that way. Also, the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Give that a follow and say what's up that way at Schmidt_radio at Herbalessence for Elijah on Twitter, and email Chris at HailVarsity.com. So, Elijah, we thought this day could and would come for Pat Fitzgerald. I am still in shock. There's the realistic reaction, there's the emotional reaction, and then there's disbelief for a guy like Pat Fitzgerald, a guy who's garnered so much respect just because of what he's done and how he's done it and how long he's done it. We're talking going into year 18 at Northwestern, and he owns most of their 10-win seasons other than the one, the teams he played on that won 10 games and went to the Rose Bowl. So he was one of those recruits that was absolutely foundational, that flipped a culture and took a basement dweller into the top 10 and into the prime time. And Fitz took over a tough situation with Coach Walker passing away, and then has elevated Northwestern to play in Big Ten championship games and also be pretty consistent. And for sure, whether they're 3-9 or 9-3, they're a pain in the neck to about everyone they play. It's not been that way the last 2 seasons, 3-9 and then 1-11. And now you're going into this year. There's been more money spent on facility upgrades between their practice facility, which is fabulous, on Lake Michigan, $800 million in renovations to Ryan Field, because quite frankly, that's an embarrassment of a home field. And he was getting things done off the field to get better facilities. On top of that, it's right up there with Stanford and Vanderbilt and the service academies when it comes to, all right, we need to go get ball players, but we've got to get a certain type of ball player, which means they have to hit our entrance requirements. And those are no small feat. That limits you in the portal, and that limits you with NIL. And that's kind of been their choice, and he still won. He has still won, and I've not ever questioned his culture, his leadership, or how the sausage is made in Evanston, because there'd really been no complaints. Well, you have things that have shaken out. You have accusations made. Pat Fitzgerald will have his day in court, and I want to hear from Pat Fitzgerald in his day in court, because I am not going to rush to judgment. I said earlier on our morning show I'd still send Pat, my kid, if he was smart enough and talented enough to go play for Pat Fitzgerald. I don't think he's an evil guy. I don't think he's a bad person. Did he know? Did he not want to know? I mean, that's the question right now, and it's just a different era. And there's like 3 types of locker rooms, right? You've got your locker room based on fear, where you're going to get your butt kicked for screwing up, or it's just a tough-minded and physically tough locker room. There has been locker rooms across college football programs, high school football programs, NFL locker rooms where guys will throw down. It's ruled out of fear, hence sexualized hazing. I better not screw up, or it's 15 different leather masks holding me down, allegedly, and a dry humping session. There's the locker room of love, where everyone's supportive, loves one another, and you have one common goal. And then there's the middle of tough love, where it's okay to get chewed out by a teammate or a coach, and you can take some hard coaching, maybe even some physical activity. Maybe there's a fight or two. But above all, at the end of the day, you're all cool, and you're rowing the boat in the same direction. And in 2023, as CEO, it stops with you. And if you didn't know about it, you should have. If you did know about it and did nothing, then that's very heinous. And you have, 11 former and current student athletes that are part of this probe that lasted 6 months. And that's where I'm all screwed up, Elijah. How do you have a 6-month investigation? Everyone agrees to a 2-week suspension, and then bang, you come back because of the blowback from the other folks on the board, and now you decide to fire the guy. Pat's hired up, he's lawyered up, and he's going to go to court to save his name.
And that last point you made is kind of where I'm at right now. In 2023, in a modern sense, it's on you, the CEO, to know what's going on in your locker room. And I think there's a very, very different feel from your old school football coaches when compared to your new school football coaches on that. Because we talked with Charlie McBride yesterday, and his whole take was he could count on one hand how many times he went into a locker room aside from postgame. Like he went to his office,
and that's what Fitz's take was. Look, the locker room's theirs. Yes. I want a team that's led by the people in it.
And that's a very old school football coach mentality that, my space is my office. If you want to come talk to me in my office, you're going to knock on the door. You're going to ask for permission to come into my
Doors
office.
Open.
And then you can come in. And it's the locker room is your space. I'm not going to come in there unless I am invited into the locker room. And it would not surprise me one bit if that's Pat Fitzgerald's mentality surrounding his locker room, and that's why he can have the plausible deniability to say, I didn't know what was going on. With that being said, in 2023, I think as we saw from the public backlash, it is your job whenever you are a leader of 18 to 22-year-old men to know what's happening in that locker room. I'm not saying go and invade these guys' personal spaces, but you can talk to guys within the team. You can go talk to your captains. You can talk to GAs. You can talk to guys that know what the locker room environment is, and I think that's one of the roles of a football coach in 2023, whether that's how you were brought up or not, that you need to know what's going on, the ins and outs of your team, not just on the football field. What are the social dynamics? What is happening in that locker room? Now, with that being said, I think that Northwestern, whenever they levied the suspension, this is no inside information from me, I think they say there's no smoking gun. We can't prove that he knew what was going on in that locker room. Therefore,
if we're going to convict, we got to have the evidence.
Yes, we got to have the evidence. We can't fire with cause right now because we can't prove that he knew what was going on in the locker room. Now, once you've seen the public backlash, once you have seen how much bad publicity this has given the Northwestern football program, I think the president and the athletic director probably got together and said, you know what, we need to end this right now. If Pat Fitzgerald ends up suing us and saying it's a wrongful firing, that's okay. We will pay that buyout in order to get our name back, to get our brand back as Northwestern football. We need to start rebuilding today. I think that's what the difference was between Friday and last night, was that Northwestern saw what the grander college football world thought of this situation and said, we need to distance ourselves. We need to start working on our public relations right now. We need to start rebuilding the brand of Northwestern football. If it comes 6 months from now and Pat Fitzgerald's lawyers prove that he didn't know what was going on in that locker room, we're willing to take that loss down the road, pay the money, get a new football coach in there now, and get things recovering before they get too out of hand. But that's where I'm at right now. And will Pat Fitzgerald be able to go into court and say this is a wrongful firing? I didn't know that this was going on. Based on the fact that you had a 6-month investigation and we still haven't seen any smoking gun that says, yes, Pat Fitzgerald knows what was going on, I'd venture to say right now, Pat Fitzgerald's probably going to get some of his buyout money back. Maybe not the full amount, but he'll get some of it back because I think Northwestern would have come out with that information should they have it right now. Well, with that being said, I'll just say in a college football world in 2023, in a culture of 2023 where hazing's been in the news with frats, sports teams really all over for 5 to 10 years now, I think Northwestern did what they had to do by letting Pat Fitzgerald go. Was it a wrongful firing? I don't necessarily want to dive into that, but I don't disagree with Northwestern's decision from a leadership standpoint to distance yourself from the bad press and say we're going to move forward without Pat Fitzgerald and try to recover our public image now.
I think their administration looks laughable where you sit down, you already come up with, after spending money and time and having an investigation for 6 months. And you come to the conclusion, yeah, we'll suspend you 2 weeks while you're on vacation. And then to double back in the face of public and university backlash and then whack the guy, I think that's an absolute joke. And I think they need to look at their president, their leader, the one who just said, all right, I'm the one who gave him the suspension. I'm the one who fired him. Schill is his name. Came from Oregon. And, that guy needs to be finding a box maybe to put his stuff in because this has been botched.
Oh, and I don't disagree with that.
They still haven't released their public or their findings to the public. Mm-mm. I mean, it took the Daily Northwestern and 4 really high-level student reporters to get whistleblower accounts and then provide the details. Did the details in the Northwestern report with the 6-month investigation match what the student newspaper has? That's the question. And if that does in fact match up and you thought it was okay to just suspend the guy for 2 weeks, but now you fire him because of public backlash, that's 2 black eyes. Well, and it's just sad. It's absolutely sad because, I'm not best friends with Pat Fitzgerald. He's been on the show a few times. I've always enjoyed covering him. I've respected the heck out of what he's done. And I still think of him as a good guy in college football. I know that sounds crazy in the moment, but I think he's a good coach. And I think for the most part, he recruits good kids. And you have a letter signed by a lot of the a statement by the Northwestern team saying, look, this is all twisted. There's some insinuation that one of the whistleblowers' goal was to find a way to get Pat Fitzgerald out. How much truth is there in that? And I'm not discounting nor overlooking sexualized hazing. There's a gray area and a fine line between accountability and maybe some tough love is the best way to put it, and I'm not being a smart aleck with that, in the locker room from seniors to freshmen. It's always existed that way, but when I mean always, there's always been kind of a chain of command. These are our leaders on the football team, and they're going to make sure you dot the I's and cross the T's. But there are different ways of getting that message across. Clearly, being held down with frightful masks, as is alleged, and being assaulted is not a way to go. Or naked snaps, alleged, not a way to go. Or the car wash setup, not a way to go. But, dude, I've not been in the football locker room, shockingly, and who knows? I don't know what exists. Is this tame compared to other programs? Is this horrific? Is it rampant? Do you want to know? The old police squad in the locker room? I mean, it's pretty devastating for Pat Fitzgerald, and you just hope the truth comes out and justice is done.
Yeah, and I just think at this point, how I see right now is regardless of Pat Fitzgerald agrees with me on this or not, you need to know what's going on in your locker room. That's a part of the job description now. So,
Joba Chamberlain to talk some MLB. That's on the way. It's Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. Schmidt and Elijah Herbel back together again. We say hi to Joba Chamberlain, standout Husker, World Series champ. Joba, what's good? How you been, man?
Just enjoying what's left of this summer. It's gone by fast. I mean, the kids start school in a month, and you're just like, where did it go? It felt like they just got out. So, just doing that and, just ramping up. And, it's kind of crazy that it'll be my son's senior year. So, just actually starting to get albums and stuff ready with pictures and all that fun stuff. So looking forward to it, but not looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, so we'll get to MLB Draft, I promise. We'll get to All-Star Game, all that stuff. Your senior pictures. What do you remember about your senior pictures? I had my pick-em-up truck, and me and my two other dudes who we thought we had sweet rides. We all got our pictures, and I had the worst haircut in America that summer of '96.
Oh man, it was rough. My dad still has one of them on his dresser, and we got him home the other day, and I was looking at it, and I was like, I thought I looked super cool. Like, I was like posing, and I don't know what I was doing. It was awful. I had
had the turtleneck and chain going.
Oh,
channeling the Rock
with like the 5 o'clock shadow mustache.
A little bit,
mm-hmm. Yeah. Rock. I mean, you do the typical with your baseball glove and your leather jacket and all that stuff. So, yeah, I try not to relive those cringy senior picture moments, but I think we all have a story about them. So
that's pretty good. Okay, so Joba had the porn stash going and the baseball glove in hand. Elijah.
Mine, I tried to get out of them. My parents like, no, you're going to go do this. So it took like
lock yourself in your room.
It took like 90 minutes on a Sunday afternoon. It was during football season. I'm like, I don't want to deal with this. Like,
got to go run the hill. Leave me alone.
I'm like, hey, go to the backyard, take a picture of me with your phone. It'll be all good. Like, we'll send that in. But no, we ended up going. It took like 90 minutes, 2 different spots. It was nice. It's guy's a friend of my brother, so that made things quite easy. Gave us a good rate, and we got in and out. And they turned out apparently better than yours. I still look at those and go, "Wow, these are good pictures."
They are. They have been burnt. Mine have, but
that's how funny. That's how young Elijah is when he said, "Hey, just go in the backyard and take a picture with your phone."
Right. Meanwhile, there's a whole look at the birdie. Look at the birdie going. Me and Joba trying to be happy and smile. Guy that's happy, Bryce Matthews, the first rounder for Nebraska baseball since you. Bryce lands with the Astros. Max in the second round to Detroit. Let's start with those two. Reaction. Do you like the landing spots? I know you know Detroit well.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're really good fits. Obviously, Bryce and just his athleticism. I mean, obviously they're going to, focus on probably some defensive stuff to just limit and combat some of those errors. But, I think it's organizational wise, they develop players and they obviously have, been to the World Series and shown that they can, bring up young talent and Jeremy Pena and things like that and show that they can win and develop a system. So I think it's just a great fit. I think he'll probably stay at shortstop. It's the athleticism is there. Obviously, we've seen the power, the arm strength's there. So, it's just going to be the consistent factor of, fielding and throwing it. So, I think it's a great fit. And as far as Max goes, the kid can hit. You can put him anywhere. Fell into a right organization and being able to, I was reading some stuff on him and they're like, he kind of projects not really anywhere, but can hit. So you got to find a spot for him. Obviously playing a little first base here, he's very undersized for that position. I don't mind him at second base. It's, one of those things where if you hit, they're going to find a spot. And so I think that's just, something that he's just going to, he's going to play himself into it, because we know he's going to hit and, they'll find a spot for him. And I think they both should move fairly fast. I think Bryce is probably going to be a little bit longer just because of the situation with them and their guy they have now. So, but it'll be fun to watch. Super excited. Just to see all the guys get drafted and, to watch their journeys come up and to know what it's like and to know that feeling. And probably pretty sure that they want to get going. They've had a little bit longer break than some people. So it'll be interesting and really looking forward to watching those guys.
How much work is going to need to be done with Bryce's swing? And I ask that in response to Keith Law's scouting report. He graded all of the first round with The Athletic, and he deemed Bryce as the riskiest pick just because of how much of a dead pull hitter he is and how he has been great at Nebraska, and he thinks he's a talented player. But Bryce and trying to adjust to that upstairs fastball from the majors.
Yeah, I think that's just going to be one of those things where he, sits down and, obviously with, his history and we know the power is there, but we can see his charts and his spray charts and there's not much to the right side, let's just say, or it might not be hit that hard. So, but just a young athletic kid that understands and loves to play the game. I think you get him around, and I'm half analytics guy. I'm half, let's just go play the game. Like there's a spot and a place for both of them. And I agree with that. But I think now if he can just, get on a different, and not to say the guys here weren't great, but, just to get a better understanding of what guys are going to do. Cause you're facing maybe a handful of guys that can execute a pitch. And, once you keep climbing the ladder, it's like you may get one pitch to hit and that's it. So, and you can't miss it. And if it's, if they see that you can't do anything to the right side, a fastball down and away is located is a tough pitch to hit. And if you can't make the adjustment, then I think that'll be the biggest thing for him because all the tools are there. It's just going to be able to have that ability to make the adjustment because, it's as you get better, the pitchers get better. They self-correct during an at-bat. It doesn't take an outing. It doesn't take an inning. So they'll notice that, and you have all the information and be like, okay, his cold zone, he's hitting less than 100 with anything down and away. You're going to have all the information. They do it in college as well. More so than it used to be. So you have the information. It's just now making the adjustments.
And one of the big positives from Bryce in his scouting profile was his exit velocity. If you're into the analytics, his exit velocity was on par with guys like Dylan Cruz and the other top hitters in this class. But he talked about the major downfall, a pull hitter. But you wonder with the banning of the shift, if that could help out Bryce in his career, the fact that they're not going to overload the left side of the infield with three guys there. You might get a couple more singles, a couple more base hits out of that. But Joba, I want to ask you about the pressure associated with being a first round pick, because there's still some holes to Bryce Matthews' game. And now he has that additional pressure of, the Astros above anyone else on their board. They wanted you. They took you in the first round. What does that pressure of being a first round guy showing up to your first professional baseball game and trying to make it through your first spring next year, trying to impress, knowing you're a first round guy? What does that pressure feel like?
It's definitely different. Like you don't really think about it very much until you report. And then you're like, all right, now I'm just another dude. Like, I'm not that guy. And, I remember the first time going in and, going to my physical and, seeing big leaguers and, just like, wow, like, that's a big leaguer. Like, I know who that is. And, you come in and you're just some 18, 19-year-old kid. And it's like, that's a grown man. And that is not me yet. So I think physically it was kind of one of those awe moments. But I think as far as it goes, like, I mean, you see a lot of first rounders, but you see more guys in other rounds end up making it. And it's what it does do. And to be perfectly honest, it gives you more chances. Mm-hmm. You get a little bit longer leash as far as, hey, we're working on his swing, let's keep him in Double-A another year. Whereas if you're a 18, 19, 20th round pick that they gave $5,000 and a plane ticket, they got 20 rounds coming in next year. So it's just, I think there is the pressure because you're like, because you've got to do the media, you've got to do all that stuff that comes with it. And then it's also like, hey, I got picked above everybody else. I have to be that dude. But then also it's like, hey, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Mm-hmm. I got to get better. I got to figure it out. Some go faster, some go, not as fast. But that opportunity right there is just, he's going to have a little bit longer leash and a little bit more time because they did value, obviously, his ability and his tools to take him.
Joba Chamberlain's with us. It's Hail Varsity Radio. Huskers in the MLB Draft, 4 in the first 10 rounds, the most since the 05 draft. Emmett Olson heads to the Marlins, Kaminska off to the Rockies. And what a nice story for both kids, but especially, you look at Emmett and landing in a spot. The Marlins have done really pretty well, historically speaking, with their pitching draft picks.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, when they changed and did a little different dynamic in the front office and seeing what they've been doing lately with young arms. And, I think it's a great fit. I mean, obviously a great story and just the determination of him getting that opportunity. And, it's guys like that, embrace the challenge and be like, hey, I've been through it. Let's go and get after it. And so, yeah, both of those guys very well deserving. And, those guys are going to be in two organizations that, if they go do what they can do, they're going to get an opportunity.
Joba Chamberlain's joining us at Hail Varsity Radio. Joba, just overall, you look at the names that have come off the board for Nebraska, and you look at the record this year, you had a really strong talent base, and it looks like there's still plenty of talent down there. What's that say about Nebraska and some of their struggles with where the program is and where it can be? You know that there's been some talent down there, but it hasn't necessarily translated into wins and not wins in the Big Ten tournament, let alone postseason beyond.
Yeah, I actually was just having a conversation with a buddy of mine about this. And, it's like we've seen the talent. Like, it's obviously been there. But if you go back and, I mean, for me personally, and you guys may have a different evaluation of it, but it just never felt like we could consistently put 9 innings together. Mm-hmm. And I think, obviously everybody wants to go to the health thing and that's part of baseball. That's just the way it is. But I just consistently, I haven't felt with the talent that we have had that we have consistently put 9 innings together from top to bottom. And I'm just not talking about physical errors, but mental errors and just all facets of the game. And, do I think it starts with pitching? I mean, obviously we had 2 guys in the top 50 picks and look what happened to us. We got 2 guys throwing the rock for us that drafted in the top 10 rounds. So I think that's just where, like, my evaluation is the consistency overall. Do I think the changes that have been made were not easy, but I think they were the best. And I think what Rob will do for the pitching staff is, I think, change a mindset. And, that's the biggest thing that I remember that we always focused on. And, I think if we can consistently start with pitching and know that we can go out and challenge anybody and know that we have a chance to win, because obviously with the bats that we had, we knew we could. And, it goes back to what we talked about before on the show, is the consistency of midweek games and being able to lock in and understand that this is just as big as a Friday night, because there's no reason we shouldn't have the record that we have in those midweek games. Mind you, college baseball, with everything that's going on, is at a great place, because there's so many different aspects now of, with the transfer portal and things like that, where, some of these mid-major schools are getting really good talent. I mean, you've seen the kid from UNO, and, his draft status, and look, and I think that's just, it's great for baseball. It's great for college baseball. I mean, the College World Series this year was unbelievable. I mean, just every part of it. And, it was surprisingly, we didn't really get bad weather, but like once, and we usually get tore up. So, but just seeing it all. And I think, just is focusing an inning at a time. And I think, once maybe a mindset changes, or, they switch something up, it's not because the talent's not there. We have it, and, we continue to grow it. And, guys are still coming here because they see what we do. I think, obviously, I mean, this isn't talking bad about it. I'm just stating a fact that the Big Ten's not a great baseball conference.
Joba, let's go to Major League Baseball, and a thought from you on just the fall classic that is. You have the All-Star game tonight. Home Run Derby was a party last night. Man, that was kind of fun to see. But how geeked do you get for the All-Star game? I mean, Acuna versus Cole. I mean, that's something we'll get to see. That hasn't happened a ton. You've got Seattle embracing it, the Major League Baseball draft, the red carpet experience. MLB's got a different feel and kind of vibe to it compared to some past years. They're really, putting the product on par, at least visually, that you're used to seeing with the NFL and NBA drafts. So MLB is really stepping their game up too this year with how they're trying to present some exposure.
Yeah, I'm going to touch on that. And then I got a question for you guys after I'm done. I think, honestly, it's unbelievable, because they're focusing on a generational aspect of what baseball was lacking for a few years. The energy, the swag, the drip, everything that it is now, to get that new generation of kids interested in baseball. Now it's like, okay, baseball enthusiasts, I'm always going to love the game no matter what. I want everybody to be themselves. Now baseball is putting that kind of at the forefront with like Players Day and in their jerseys. And now you can do anything with your cleats. And that's what it is for the next generation of kids coming up. And they're seeing these guys do it, where when I was coming up, it was a 9 to 5. I mean, I got castrated for fist pumping. Like, it was, oh my gosh, don't do this. And I'm like, if you hit a home run off me, you can throw the bat in the stands. I don't care. Like, I didn't make a pitch. I didn't execute. You did. And now it's like those are celebrated. And I think they're doing a fantastic job of getting that generation excited about the game, and that they can show their personality on the field, off the field, and it's celebrated. And, I know some of the old heads out there don't like it, but that's just the way the game has changed. I mean, obviously that everybody was freaking out about the pitch clock, but it really hasn't affected that much. I mean, it will come in. We'll probably have this conversation again if it comes into play in like a postseason or something like that, but we haven't seen it where it's played a big part. So I love what they're doing. I love how, they're having kids there just like the NFL and the NBA draft do. And, just the whole experience as the fan aspect of feeling like they're a part of it. I mean, when I got drafted, had my son and a baby Bjorn in the laundry room uploading a computer. Now it's televised. Everybody loves it. It's a fun event to watch. And so I love every aspect of it.
And you talk about the game getting more fun, and it really
got to individualize, man.
You've individualized. You've allowed players to have fun. I mean, sports are supposed to be fun. And my one complaint, as you were discussing the pitch clock, was that we had a game that was an hour and 50 minutes last week. How am I going to have 9 beers and 9 hot dogs in 9 innings in only an hour and 50 minutes? It takes a little fun away.
How are you going to
me.
afford either? First of all,
another
take a loan out.
Yeah,
another great point. But I can sit on my couch and like my roommates, they never liked baseball. But before I leave and come here, I say, hey, the noon game's starting on TV. I'm going to flip it on for you. And they're able to watch a 9-inning baseball game because you know what? It's going to be done in 2 hours and 20 minutes. And it gives them something to do for a couple hours. They actually are starting to appreciate baseball. I think that's what the change to baseball has been, is it's not, as you said, for the purists anymore. You're trying to open it up and show the rest of the sports world that, hey, our sport is fun too.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point. And it's, just listen to the, talk shows and guys that aren't baseball fans. And now it's like, you listen to them and now they're talking baseball because it's like, they bring it up. It's not 3.5 hours. And it's like, I can get into a game and, things like that. So I agree with it. I mean, probably a lot of the people that have been selling beer and hot dogs for 30 years, probably not a huge fan of it just because it cuts into, their market. But also at the same time, you're getting different. You're getting the casual, maybe I like baseball, maybe I don't. But now it's like, oh, I like this player. Oh, it's an hour and a half and we're in the 7th inning. Like, you get to enjoy it and not like, oh, we're only in the 4th inning. And where now they're turned off, they don't want to watch it, and then you lose them.
My kid's screaming, it's 200 degrees. I've taken out 2 loans now because Junior did want these strawberry kebabs. I mean, it is what it is. Joba, we'll get you out of here on this. Ohtani is such a special talent at the dish and on the mound, and he wants to compete for titles. And you look at what the reality's been for the Angels and just 3 postseason games with Trout. We know what his trophy case looks like individually. But with Ohtani, do you get something for him if you're the Angels, or do you try and say, look, dude, we'll do better and put more around you? I mean, they've got arguably 2 of the best on the field right there for him, but they're not knocking on any doors.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is, think about this. You're going to have over $1 billion in 2 players. Is that even feasible?
For some teams.
100%, don't disagree. But, I mean, as Artie's already been, I want to sell the team, this, that, and then it backed out. And then, I mean, there's going to be a 6 in front of Ohtani's number. I mean, yep. That's just what it is. And obviously we know we'll never see this again. And if we do, baseball is in a great place. So, you have to. I mean, he's too much of a global icon that brings so many different eyes to the game. Like, people know who he is and probably have never watched baseball just because of what he's done and bringing another culture into what is, already one of their big components of their culture, and just doing things that we've never seen before, and just being one of the most gracious, humble guys you've ever seen. And how can you not ask for basically whatever you want?
Do you go Herschel Walker trade though, and deal him and load up if you're the Angels? Can you have a better team without him? That's stupid to say, but I'm wondering. And
I think that's the question. Do you get 10 guys for him? Because, I mean, you're getting, 3 or 4 great for just one doing one thing. I mean, he's doing things we've never seen.
Sure. So, I mean,
you got to get 6, 7 guys. I mean, if you're going to know you're not signing him or whatever, trade deadline, maybe try to load up because somebody's just going to rent him.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, I get 2.5 months. You know what? I'm renting him, and then he's going to be a free agent. We can't afford it anyways, but hey, let's try to win now.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we're going to have to give up some prospects. You're probably going to, this would be the one where I think it might be because you're going to want 100% prospects, and you're going to want 100% dudes that are ready to help in the big leagues right now.
And all I'll say is, thank God the Rockies don't have Ohtani, because they'd be sending Ohtani plus $50 million to a contender in order to get like 1 or 2 prospects back, like they did with Arenado. Thank God the Rockies don't have them.
Joba, we'll get caught up again, brother. Thanks for talking some ball with us today.
Yeah, hold on. Before we go, this was brought up to me this morning. Do you like the format of the 3 minutes for the home run, or do you like the 10 outs better?
10 outs. It's
Give
an
me the
easy
10
answer
outs,
for me.
man.
Give me the 10
the 10.
outs.
10 swing.
I like the 10 outs because you actually get to enjoy the home run.
Yeah. Can sit and watch.
And it's not like it goes any faster.
And if you get a guy on a hot streak, he's just going to keep on swinging and swinging and swinging. And who doesn't like seeing more home runs whenever a guy's locked in?
Yeah, and then there's the couple times where you saw him just get tired, and it's like you got to take your break, but then you're losing two, 3 pitches that could be home runs if you had the outs. I personally like the outs better too.
No, you got to go 10. You got to go 10 outs for sure. Good stuff, brother. We'll do home run derby soon.
Sounds good.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, podcast. Get that. Subscribe to it. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, or the video portion, Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Doesn't cost you anything. And can check the show out, the segments, or the entire thing at your desire. A reminder about your friends at Dyer Law. Congrats to Dyer Law as they took fight in front of a federal jury in Omaha. After days of testimony, the jury awarded their client $3 million in damages, which is huge, and you can trust the team at Dyer Law to help ensure your rights are protected and you get the settlement you deserve. Call Dyer Law today at 402-393-7529 or visit Dyer.law to chat with trusted professionals about your claim. That's Dyer.law, 402-393-7529. We're about 10 minutes away from Mike Reilley joining us. Mike, veteran newsman, newspaper man, founder of the Journalist Toolbox, a graduate in Nebraska, a graduate of the Medill Graduate School at Northwestern Journalism College that's world-renowned. So Riles knows a thing or two about Northwestern and, of course, the college football world and just sports in general. He's covered a lot of big beats in his career. So excited to talk with a friend of the Average Joe Sports Show from the very beginning, about 10 minutes from now. Rob Zatechka will talk some Big Red football with us in hour 2, 489-1240, 489-1240. Numbers to get in. You can email the show, chris@hailvarsity.com. And as always, you're welcome to submit comments and questions. A lot of positive reaction with Joba. Always love catching up with Joba. A couple of segments with him. The StreamYard allows you to do that. The Hail Varsity YouTube channel, watch us there, or can check out the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio. So we are 2 weeks from today. We'll be hunkered down at Big Ten Media Days. Day one is Northwestern Day, and as it's deemed now. Not always the case, but it is going to be day one. Northwestern will be there. Some of the other schools Nebraska will face with one last rodeo in the West. We'll be there for day two, of course, with Nebraska and Matt Rule. Should be pretty entertaining and exciting. Be set up on Radio Row video and radio. So it should be a good 1-2 punch.
Let's see if our friend Brady Oltmans is willing to sit down with us for maybe a show, a couple segments at least. I know he's going to be out there.
He'll be hustling.
He will be.
He'll be hustling. We'll be hustling. So yeah. Hey, Brady, by the way, I know you've got players to interview and coaches to talk to. No, yeah.
Well, I know by the time like 4 o'clock rolls around.
The chair's always welcome for Brady. Brady gives us a lot of his time. We need to get Brady fed and watered somewhere.
Yeah, I was already talking about that with him last night after the show. I was like, hey, let me take you out steak and a beer somewhere. And he goes, I have cheap taste. Can we do a burger and a beer? And I was like, well, you're speaking my language. I don't see why not.
In fact, I'll take you to burger night. No, Brady's a good dude. He's the best. We appreciate him. Great coverage from Brady with Nebraska football. incredible feature in the Hail Varsity Yearbook you need to get a hold of. Can subscribe to Hail Varsity Magazine. We invite you to do that. Bundle the digital and the print. And be sure to log on and do that. HailVarsity.com/offer. Real easy to do. He is in the green room already. Mike Reilley with us next. We'll talk Northwestern and Fitz on Hail Varsity.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
When I think about the difficulties that every team has as they welcome new members into their families, one of the big issues that we've seen in college athletics and across the country is the hazing issues. Things that we believe here in Northwestern, number one, is there's a zero tolerance for hazing.
That was the head man, Pat Fitzgerald, from way back in 2013 on hazing. That is the bombshell. 24 hours later, nearly, as he was let go by Northwestern. We welcome you into Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency, Hour 2. We welcome in a voice known to many in Lincoln and in the sports world, the Journalist Toolbox's founder, Mike Reilley. Follow Mike on Twitter. It's Mike Reilley. Riles, good to see you. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us. Want your perspective on this, not only as a guy who's covered sports for a lot of years, but also a guy who's taught for a number of years and taught at Northwestern. Of course, you graduated also from the Medill Graduate School of Journalism there. Let's just start with the decision to move on from Pat Fitzgerald by Northwestern. Do you agree with it?
Yeah, I do. There's an old saying, integrity is who you are when you think nobody is watching. And the Daily Northwestern was watching Pat Fitzgerald, and they got the story. This is all because of great reporting from a student newspaper. They did their job, and I'm amazed that they were able to keep this as quiet as long as they have. Apparently, from what we're hearing from alums, this has gone on for more than a decade at Northwestern. It was the right decision ultimately. Their initial decision wasn't handled well at all. I mean, I'm sure many of you have talked about that already. I mean, the report alone had 11 current or former football players who talked about systemic ongoing hazing within the program, forced participation, the sexualized acts. You know, this is just really heinous stuff. About a month ago, I was having lunch with one of my former students at Northwestern, a name you guys know well, Adam Rittenberg, who covers college football for ESPN. And I brought up to him, Adam had done a story back in January about this very thing, about this investigation. You know, it was just a complaint from a student was all it was. It wasn't about hazing or anything. And I asked him, I go, what's going on with that? We haven't heard anything. He goes, yeah, I thought it was really odd that we haven't heard anything yet. So Adam goes on vacation. He's out in California. And all this breaks last week, and he flew home yesterday, to continue reporting on it, but did some reporting out there as well. You know, and if you would have asked Adam and I, name a list of or do a list of Division I college coaches who would have a hazing scandal on their hands, I would guarantee you the last person on that list would probably be Pat Fitzgerald. It's really blindsided a lot of people in the Northwestern community. I've talked to a lot of my former colleagues and friends and, a couple of former student athletes that have passed through my classes. They couldn't believe it. And I only know Fitz as a student. He was a senior when I was a grad student there, and I met him through a mutual friend. Very unassuming. I tell a story that I've told for years about him. I was in the athletic director's office at Northwestern, and the assistant athletic director was in there talking with me. We were planning out a class where my students would go over and learn from Randy Walker, kind of X's and O's type class. It was a graduate level sports journalism class. And a box was sitting in the corner, and it had the Butkus Award in it. Had the AP All-American Award, the plaques in it. They're covered in dust. They'd been sitting there for 4, maybe close to 5 years, and it was all of Fitz's awards. He had never come in to pick them up. So that was kind of that sterling golden boy reputation he had around there. He's very unassuming, He had a great personality. He made you feel good when you were around him. And what we didn't know was what was going on behind the scenes. And again, I'm amazed that this is kept quiet for so long. Thing to remember about Fitz, he was 31 when he took over as head coach. Mm-hmm. And I think he never really learned how to be a head coach, how to be the guy. And I think he picked up some bad habits along the way. When Randy Walker died, it was a shock to everybody. The university reacted quickly. They saw this young coach, and he was the youngest D1 coach, head coach for years. So I don't think he was really ready for the position back then. His security blanket's gone now. Morty Shapiro, the president, retired. Jim Phillips, the AD, is now the ACC commissioner. And I doubt that the new AD survives this. He was over in Europe when all this broke and just got back today.
He's the new AD because the guy that replaced Phillips lasted 9 days.
Yeah, they've had a whole series of controversies over the years. I mean, back in 2006, the women's soccer team and their hazing incident had some players suspended. And then their other athletic director basically just ignored the cheerleaders' harassment complaints back in 2021, and that led to a lawsuit. In going all the way back to 1995, I did reporting on this. They had one of the biggest gambling scandals in college sports history. Dennis Lundy, the running back on the football team, laid the ball on the one three times his senior year. The last one was at the University of Iowa, and his teammates came over and started yelling at him. And that raised some eyebrows, that something might be up. They started to look at Dion Lee as well on the basketball team, and he was shaving points. He was clanking layups, in blowout games. And they're wondering, what's going on with this guy? With both of them, the FBI looked into it because when it was an interstate issue. And they actually had the Notre Dame kicker at the time involved in this. They were running gambling bets through the mafia through this kicker at Notre Dame. It was just, the university just didn't, really seem to care. And the Chicago media kind of gives Northwestern and Pat Fitzgerald a free pass. It's a pro sports town, so they didn't pursue this very hard when the initial announcement came out. But it was a student media that jumped on it and really got after it and did some fantastic reporting. I mean, they had multiple sources confirmed. They were a step ahead of not just the Chicago media, but the national media on this too. And, I gave up my season tickets, on Monday. I called the ticket office and told them I'm done. They tried to talk me out of it, said I didn't have all the facts. And I go, well, I have all the facts I needed from the school newspaper. So I'm going to take that money that they got to send me back this week, and I'm going to donate some of it to the student newspaper. I think it's important to have, just say with Northwestern or Nebraska and the Daily Nebraskan, it's important to have that student voice on campus. If you can, donate to those causes because those students operate on, very little money. Ad revenues have shrunk in the print industry, including student newspapers. And it comes down to, alumni donations, really.
Mike Reilley's with us here at Hail Varsity Radio talking Pat Fitzgerald and Northwestern. And Mike, I don't think that the sticking point here is whether or not these alleged incidents occurred. There's so many different whistleblowers and so many corroborating accounts that I don't think it's in doubt that this hazing occurred. The sticking point for Pat Fitzgerald is whether or not he knew, and that's where a potential lawsuit could be coming from Pat Fitzgerald and his lawyer saying he didn't know that this was going on in the locker room. I want to get your take on that. Do you think that there is anything to that argument from Pat Fitzgerald?
Nothing to it. Whether he knew or not, he's either lost institutional control by not knowing. You're the head coach of the college football team. Your locker room has a marker board in the middle of it with Shrek's List at the top of it, and you don't know what's going on with it. He sent his own son, Jack, into this program, into this culture. Think about that for a minute. And also, the report that came out, said, well, we couldn't conclude whether or not he knew. But since then, the racism and the other allegations have come out. That is also, violation of his code of conduct. So that's terms for firing as well. So they've got him either way. He's in the second year of a $10-year, $57 million contract. And he just wants more money. He and the lawyer are going to try and leverage that. They're going to get a punch back, so to speak. It's a pretty common thing in contract negotiations that they come back with something like this. Oh, we weren't given due process. So he's cooked either way. I mean, if he did know, shame on him for not taking action immediately 10 years ago or more. If he claims he didn't know, and back when I was an undergrad at Nebraska, I certainly remember, a certain college football coach saying, "Oh, I'm unaware of all this that's going on with Doug DeBose and the card that was purchased by the academic advisor. I didn't know that steroids were running rampant in my locker room." So we've seen that for years. The babe in the woods talk from college football coach. Oh, I was unaware. Barry Switzer used that at Oklahoma back in the day with all the assault rifles in the dorms and stuff like that back in the 80s. I mean, it was a Wild West, the Big 8 conference was. So, whether or not he knew and when he knew it, is it a factor? Yeah. But I think they've got him either way. He's just leveraging for more money. It's lawyers posturing right now.
Mike Reilley with us here, Hail Varsity Radio at It's Mike Reilley on Twitter is where you can follow Mike, the founder of the Journalist Toolbox. Mike, should Fitz coach again? Do you think Fitz coaches again?
Whether or not I think he should isn't relevant. I think within 2 years he'll be a DC somewhere, and then a few years as DC and he'll be a head coach again. I mean, he's only 48, but yeah, I think he'll come back and coach again. He's well connected, well liked among the coaching circles. People tend to have short memories in the coaching circles as well. People have done far worse and come back and coached. So, I think he sits out a year or two, kind of travels around. This is what coaches typically do in that off year. Travel around, visit different camps, kind of network, learn some things, study some film. I can remember when I covered the NFL for the LA Times, we'd get Joe Bugle came through the Rams camp.
Good old Joe.
Training camp. Yeah, the old Arizona coach. And a few others would come through and check in with Chuck Knox and other people that they coached with, but they were just gathering ideas and things like that, and then they move on either as an assistant or head coach elsewhere. So I think he does come back, maybe not at a bigger school. He might go to one of the smaller schools, but he won't go to one of the Power Fives right away unless he's got a friend somewhere. It's a very tight network, and he'll wind up somewhere. The other issue here is the football stadium, $800 million stadium project. And a lot of, the faculty got together and wrote a letter to the university president that leaked out today and said, basically, we think the stadium deal should be put on hold. I don't know if that'll happen. It comes down to what the Ryan family wants. It's Ryan Field for a reason. And if they want it built, it'll happen. They're also battling with the city of Evanston over that. They're trying to get the permits and everything, and the city's putting up a fight. They have a terrible town-gown relationship there, largely because Northwestern doesn't pay property taxes. They were in Evanston before it was Evanston, so the city grew around the university. So they pay no property taxes. They don't pay for any city services. Any ambulance that comes to campus or a fire truck or anything, they're not paying taxes for that.
Property tax relief, Mike. You're tempting me. Mike Reilley's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Thoughts on Northwestern. Let's focus here and now. This is the last year of the Big Ten West. Hollywood comes to the Big Ten. How dire is the situation on field for Northwestern? We've seen the last 2 years. You've got Coach Braun as interim now, but are they at a tipping point? They've always found a way under Fitz to be relevant, be a pain in the neck, and, by the win, go to bowl games and win 10 games occasionally. How just dire are they right now with what's in front of them?
Well, there's a conga line down Sheridan Road into the transfer portal. There are going to be a lot of guys leaving. And they can leave. Once a coach leaves, you can, 30 days you can declare for the portal. So, if you're looking for some offensive linemen, Fitz tends to get good offensive linemen. Peter Skoronski went in the first round of the draft. Pretty good at, picking up some defensive backs and linebackers too. Nebraska might want to hit that portal and take a look, especially, they like those Chicago kids. So, and he was able to get a few of those. I think the coaching carousel isn't going to kick in until after next season, so they can't get real serious about anybody. I see 2 wins on their schedule, UTEP and Howard University. Other than that, it's going to be pretty ugly. 2-10 is better than 1-11, which they went last year. And The one win was over Nebraska. I just, it's very puzzling to me, if they can do much better than 2-10 this year. It's going to be ugly. They're going to lose some games badly in the Big Ten, especially with some of the personnel they're going to lose. I mean, how do you really recruit for the next 2 or 3 years there? We've seen programs come back, SMU, Baylor with Pat Rule. Yeah. So what Northwestern needs to find after this season is a program builder, sound familiar, Husker fans, and somebody that can come in and reset the culture, that's well networked and can build a program. Because if that stadium goes up, they've got a state-of-the-art practice facility. They'll have a brand new stadium in 2 years. They'll be out of excuses, and it's time to do better than 1-11 or 2-10.
And a lot of people within the past 24 hours have talked about how difficult a sell job this is going to be for Northwestern. I'm kind of more here with Mike with you do have a great facility, potentially a new stadium, and you're in one of the 2 premier football conferences in the country. And even though you might be at the bottom of the totem pole, I think somebody out there will see the opportunity in that.
Well, you got to be Dr. Rob Zatechka smart to get into Northwestern, and that's a reality.
And I'm not saying it's an easy job, but I think there is opportunity out there for the right candidate.
Sure, absolutely. Mike Reilley with us. It's been all Rocket Radio. First Joba, now Mike Reilley, as it's the founder of the Journalist Toolbox, and at It's Mike Reilley on Twitter. Riles, thank you so much, brother, for your perspective on this. Love your insight, and always appreciate you sharing time with us, man.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much, and great seeing you, Elijah. Take care.
All right,
thanks,
there
Mike.
he is. Mike Reilley with us. Good to hear from Riles on the Northwestern situation. We'll talk some Husker football. Dr. Rob Zatechka on the way. Hail Varsity continues, presented by Currency.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Big thanks to Mike Reilley for joining us. Not that Mike Reilley, but Mike Reilley, the sports guy, Journalist Toolbox, and Northwestern graduate and teacher. His perspective there. We welcome in Husker All-American, part of the pipeline, national champion. Are you in the kitchen, Dr. Rob Zatechka? Good to see you again. Thanks for a few minutes, man.
I am. I'm kind of moving around the house a little bit here, trying to find the best signal.
No, it's great. It's great, and appreciate you taking some time with us. We'll get into some Nebraska offensive line thoughts as we are gearing up for media days and then gearing up for the season. But the Pat Fitzgerald bombshell and Northwestern, a program that's been down the last couple of years, but man, they've had years where they surprised, and it's just going to be weird not seeing him on the sideline. Now, there's all sorts of allegations out, and Fitz will have his day in court. What do you make of this, Rob? I mean, you were part of a program at Nebraska that had such strong locker room leadership. What's your reaction?
I guess, somebody earlier today, I saw listening to the radio made the comment that, if you're going to pick a guy that you would have not expected this to, I shouldn't say happen to, but a guy to not let this happen under his watch, Fitzgerald probably would have been the last guy that I would have picked.
Sure.
He kind of seemed like one of those people that ran such a clean ship, great program. You're at an institution that has such an incredible reputation academically, to have this kind of thing happen there at that place. Surprising, disturbing. There's kind of about 1,000 words you can use. Unexpected is probably the biggest one that keeps coming to my mind.
What was it about your locker rooms, your guys' camaraderie and culture that was tough, but also an environment where you guys could thrive on the field? Because I don't think it's a coincidence where Northwestern's kind of taken a bit of a nosedive here the last couple of years.
I was talking to a couple of guys, Joe Wilkes and Vershawn Jackson, about this yesterday. And one of the conversations that we had regarding this was about accountability to the guys that you're playing with. And when you have this top-down leadership that, it starts with the university administration, the coach and staff, the athletic department and administration, and it filters down through the players where everybody has this incredibly high level of accountability to each other. You can't have situations like this coming up, because if you're in a tough spot on the field, if you're injured, you're hurt, the game's on the line, it's a huge game, you're playing for a championship. If you're going to look down the line of scrimmage, if you're going to look down the sideline at the guys you're playing with, and somewhere in the back of your mind is, hey, these guys did this thing to me years ago, last year. What kind of those guys, or what kind of accountability? That accountability goes away when you have these types of incidents or hazings taking place in a locker room. Accountability can't exist when you have that type of stuff going on.
It's Dr. Rob Zatechka with us here. It's Hail Varsity Radio as we talk Pat Fitzgerald, Northwestern, the locker room hazing incident. And Dr. Rob, what is the line? Is there a line with how you can be tough on somebody in a locker room without coming to a place where you can tear the team apart? Because there does need to be accountability within a team, and there does need to be accountability within a locker room, and clearly Northwestern wasn't going about this the right way. Like, from a standpoint of Pat Fitzgerald, how do you make sure that your locker room has accountability without letting it get too far?
I think there's a couple of parameters, and I mean, it's, truth be told, I mean, this is the kind of thing where I think schools are going to be getting together and forming player and staff and administrative committees, kind of like what we did at Nebraska with the whole Unity Council that Jack Stark started. You've got to be able to look at this multi-level, and I think the first two places that you look when you look at those types of situations are, one, there has to be some degree of consent. Guys got to be there. Guys got to be willing to take part in some degree of these team building exercises. And I'm talking about a lot of stuff like the types of things we did. If somebody was, I'd say, slacking off in practice, not working hard in off-season conditioning, you've got a degree of consent there that, hey, if I'm slacking off and somebody says, hey, Zatechka, you need to go run a couple of stadium stairs because you're not pulling your weight, I've got to be able to say, hey, you know what, you're right, I'm going to go do that. There's a level of consent there that, hey, there's certain things I'm signing up for and I'm okay with. And I'm not sure exactly where you draw that line. Are you going to run me until I vomit? Well, you don't want to do that. But if there's a degree of punitive running there, I get that in a certain degree of that I'm consenting to and I'm going to be okay with. The other line that you have to have is that there can't be a power difference. If you've got a bunch of the senior and upperclassmen up here and they're putting the freshmen through whatever down here, and there's this power gap in between the two, that can't exist either. That's kind of a hard line that you can't cross. And one of the things I always thought about at Nebraska, it's not like we weren't pranking each other. It's not like we weren't pulling stuff on each other. And then there was stuff I think about that the D line would do. There was stuff the offensive line would do to each other. But this was the kind of thing, it was juniors and seniors doing it to other juniors and seniors. I mean, there were some guys you didn't want to mess with. And it was, I mean, guys like Terry Keneally would pull stunts that you just didn't want to get on Terry's back.
Can we get an example of a stunt?
He was one of the things.
PG, of course. PG, of course.
Terry's going to come after me for this one. He was an ag science major. He's an academic All-American. The guy's smarter than heck. Over somewhere on East Campus in the ag college, they had fermented soybeans they would use for fertilizer. And this is not fermented soybeans like your miso soy stuff. This stuff was just junk. And you take these soybeans and they're blackish brown. They disintegrated into sort of this soft, wet mass. Well, when you think about soft, wet, brown stuff, what do you think of? And by the way, this stuff, it looked and it smelled exactly like what you're thinking of. Well, Terry would take that, not tell anybody, and he'd smear it under the door handle of your car. And so you'd go to get in your car and you'd have this, just, what is this stuff on my fingers? And you get it close to your face and you're just like, oh my God, it was soybeans. But that was the kind of pranks he would pull. Terry would only do that to other upperclassmen. That's the thing. There wasn't this power differential. And it was one of these things. Terry also knew that if he did it to you, it was coming back at him at some point. So he understood that as well. So you could do stuff. You could have fun. You could prank each other. Some of the stuff like that was kind of legendary. But it was fun. You were doing it because you were getting after it with the other guys on the team. And it was great for a laugh. And I can sit here and talk about it 30 years later and I'm laughing at it. And I'm just like, man, I can't believe Keneally got me. But again, it was, like I said, it's like you didn't have that power differential. But those are the two lines that you can't cross. There's got to be some degree of consent that they know what they're signing up for, and they're willing to go through a certain amount of stuff. And like I said, I got to be really clear here. When I say a certain amount of stuff, I'm talking about, hey, I'm not pulling my weight in practice. I'm not pulling my weight out there during winter or summer conditioning, and somebody's going to get on my case and say, hey, Zatechka, you're running 5 extra 40-yard dashes after the workout today because, man, you're just slacking off. Okay, yeah, I get it. I signed up for that, and I'm fine with that. But you can't go to a freshman and say, hey, we're going to gang up on you in this manner. So those are the two big things.
Dr. Rob Zatechka is with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. Rob, a couple minutes here and we'll get you out. I thought Coach Raiola was on the network and touched on the process of the O-line, new techniques, new language, and 5 guys plus. You've got a lot of experience coming back. What's the little birdie tell you about how things have gone this summer with the offensive line?
It's going good. They've been kind of quiet, I got to be honest with you. And I say that in the sense of things like because I think one of the key components is going to be like a guy like Teddy Prohaska coming back from injury. You've got a guy there that if he's healthy, and they've been very quiet about his progress other than he's been making really good progress, and he looks good. If you see him, the guy looks like just an absolute beast. But if he comes out, he's healthy, that's going to be a key cog in that offense. History, when you're up into that knee injury, and boy, he really looked good out there. The other thing it's going to be interesting to see how he looks and how he's gelling with the offensive line is Ben Scott at center. You got a big name transfer coming in from Arizona State. How well is he going to mesh in there with the guys who are already there? How well is he going to mesh with a guy like Reilley coming back from that suspension last year at the guard spot? There's going to be some big questions on that offensive line because you've got some guys that have some proven history that have played very well in the past. Again, Ben Scott, all his tapes at Arizona State. But how are you going to take these guys? Are they going to mesh? Are they going to play together? Are they going to be able to show that they've come back from these injuries to be able to have an effective offensive line?
Dr. Rob Zatechka. Dr. Rob, the Doc Talk podcast, real quick, about 30 seconds. What's on the docket with you guys?
Well, we just got started up. We took about a month off, and we're kind of coming back again. Going to start recording pretty regularly here, probably every other week through the end of July. But we've had some really good interviews over the course of the summer, and we're still kind of getting up and getting things moving with YouTube. So the YouTube channel's growing, and that's something that's been fun. Having it on video, and we've got some really good feedback from fans. But we're probably going to get going late July, that first week in August, get going, and we're going to be out there weekly again, doing both the podcast, which you can pick up on anywhere you listen to your podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and then all of those are also going to be on YouTube as well. So if you go out, find the Doc Talk Sports YouTube channel, subscribe. We love the subscriptions, and there you go.
Dr. Rob Zatechka. Rob, thanks for the time, bud. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Good to see you guys.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Big thanks to Rob Zatechka, Husker legend, for joining us. Mike Reilley also kicked off Hour 1, our Northwestern insider, graduate and former teacher there. So the next move is this, from the, well, Fitz is done, wow, to who's going to take the Northwestern job. How desirable is the Northwestern job? And something you pointed out in Hour 1 when we kicked things off, Elijah, that, I mean, you're going to make money. You're going to get a bump from presumably a G5 gig, or from a coordinator to a head coach opportunity, unless Coach Braun gets them to a bowl game. And as he's been brought in new before all this went down, he was not part of the staff. I mean, it's a Big Ten job. It's in one of two monster leagues, SEC and the Big Ten, from a stability and a financial standpoint. But man, you have Kansas State pre-Bill Snyder, you have Northwestern pre-Gary Barnett, and those are like the two exile spots, or why the hell do you want that job? I mean, Barney shared the story about how Northwestern was just going to move to the Ivy League. They didn't let him know that after he accepted the job. And then you have Bill Snyder in Kansas State, even Colorado. I mean, Colorado had some success, and then McCartney went through his tough seasons, and then they broke through. And, man, to get off the mat if you're Northwestern and be competitive, and then be competitive in a new Big Ten era, is extremely difficult. I've got two coaches. I don't have a short list beyond two, but Coach Shaw, that was at Stanford, did a hell of a good job following Harbaugh, and it just kind of fizzled out, and he knows what he's getting into. Maybe he doesn't want to get back into it, and he'll look to the NFL. But Coach Shaw did really well at Stanford with the same type of parameters. And then Willie Fritz, Tulane's a highly powered academic institution, and Tulane hasn't always been great, but Fritz was, he kind of hit pay dirt last year with his system, his style, and his talent. So maybe Fritz is on the short list as well. There's other coaches and coordinators that would be interested. So I think they'll be able to find a group of candidates. But as bad as the process has been with the president, from the internal investigation to the suspension to the refiring to now the lawsuit, and now you can't botch this hire. They were gifted a guy like Walker, who took the baton and ran after Barney. Fitz came in and took him to new heights. From a strictly on-field performance, you're going to get paid by the Big Ten. Now, do you want to get paid and suffer, or do you want to be competitive? You can say Northwestern in the tenure of Fitz has been pretty competitive with a 5-5 bowl record. I mean, getting to a bowl 10 out of 17 years at Northwestern, I think that's super impressive. I'm not overlooking the accusations here. I know I felt Friday initially with this that Fitz was kind of getting hosed. It's just one whistleblower. I still want to hear his side because I think he's a pretty stand-up guy, and you can not know. It's hard to believe, but you can claim you don't know. But he's a head coach that I would like to have thought ran it the right way and did it the right way for a lot of years. But there's more and more that keeps coming out.
And stand-up guys can screw up.
Right. You just can't screw up at $5.5 million a year. I mean, that's what your exorbitant salary's for. Yes, it's to win on the field, but it's to deal with all the crap that's not in pro football. And part of that is management, oversight, and knowing what is always going on in your locker room. and putting a stop to things that you either disagree with or could get you fired.
And I don't mean to sit here and defend Fitz, because that's not what I'm trying to come from here, but just like there's a mentality in football that, I mean, and it comes down to hazing too. Like, I had to go through this, therefore you're going to have to go through this because it's what makes you a football player. I don't think Fitz is a bad person. I actually think Fitz is a great person. I think he's a great football coach. But he comes from that lineage of the old school football where you got to toughen a guy up. You got to make a guy go through things he doesn't want to go through in order to turn him into a good football player.
And it's harder to do now than ever
in today's era. And it's hard to do now. And I think Fitz probably got blinded by the pressure of the job, blinded by the fact that what he was doing was working early in his tenure, and I think
it was working up to 3 years ago when they went to the Big Ten title game.
And I think you can be a good person and still say, you know what, this is old school football. This is what happens. Society might not like it, but this is what football is, and you can be wrong in that. And I think Fitz was wrong in that, and I think that's why we're seeing Fitz get kicked to the curb today. Like, you can't make a mistake of that monumental. That's that monumental in nature, I should say. Sorry, and expect to keep your job. Where does Northwestern go next? I don't know. I will say I don't think Northwestern is the worst job in the Big Ten, but it is the hardest place to win. Both of those things can be true.
That's a good take. Absolutely.
Both of those things can be true. I think that I mean, like, who wants to go coach at Rutgers? And, like, Loxley's done a great job at Maryland, but they have a ceiling as well. I think Northwestern is a tough place to win, but you got to live in the city of Chicago. There's good talent in that area. You have to live up to high academic standards, but you can win. It's been done a couple times before. It's not an easy job, not by any means.
Isn't that
very
the perfect combination? The smart, tough football player.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
Ideally,
and that's why we have seen coaches that have been able to find success at Northwestern. It takes a special person to run that program. I think Northwestern's going to have to cross their T's, dot their I's in this search process and find the right guy, because there's not many out there that are going to be able to do a high level job at Northwestern. But there are guys out there. I don't even know enough to make any predictions. I know there's great assistant coaches in the Big Ten. I know the names you listed off, especially Mike Shaw. He's been a guy who's done it and had success at a program that has very high academic standards. So maybe Shaw's the guy that you bring to the top of your list. I'm not quite sure, but all I know is that the right guy, can resurrect that Northwestern football program, but damn, is it going to be an uphill battle.
Completely uphill. And who knows if they pause the new stadium funding, because that is a big part of it. You've been playing in a high school gym with grass that maybe gets cut every 3 weeks to equalize the speed, allegedly. And, your practice facilities is awesome. I mean, it looks like a spectacular giant home in the Architectural Digest.
I mean, the resources that you'll have with new TV media rights deal come into the Big Ten, like, you'll have more resources than almost any other school in the country aside from a select, 20?
Sure.
And you're on the same echelon as them?
You have 32 schools that are in the SEC and the Big Ten in 2 years. Mm-hmm. And you're printing billions. And you've secured a potential killer lineup of Fox, CBS, and NBC, so you can own 11A to 6P. We'll wind down at Tuesday. Hail Varsity continues. We're presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you one final time on a Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. So are we going to do a steak and a beer? It's been a long time since we've done a steak and a beer bet.
On the MLB All-Star Game?
Yeah. I mean, I know the National League hasn't won in a billion years. What do you think?
I don't even know what the odds are. I assume the AL's the favorite.
Yeah, they're the favorite. We need to get old Danny Burke on the horn and figure it out.
If you're betting on all-star games,
you're a degenerate. Well, you can always do the prop bet. How many strikeouts will Garrett Cole have?
Let's see, the American League.
What are you finding?
The NL is the slight favorite. No, excuse me. The American League is the slight favorite this year, but it's very, very close.
It is. So how many runs are you going to give me if I take the National League?
If you take the National, I'll give you a run. Run and a half. Run and a half.
Okay, fine. Done.
Run and a half.
Steak and a beer.
That the AL wins by 2? That's what I'm taking here, correct?
Yeah. Yep, 2 runs.
Yeah, I can do that. I can do that.
Okay. Well, that's simple enough.
I mean, I just, like, the MLB All-Star Game, I think we mentioned this last year when the MLB All-Star Game was on. It's lost its appeal ever since the winner did not get home field advantage in the postseason. That was always one of the special things about the MLB All-Star Game was there was something on the line. And that if you won that game, you secured yourself a chance, if you were on a playoff contender, even if you weren't, that your league would get home field advantage in the World Series, which is a big deal. They did away with that. Now you look at the All-Star Game and you go, what's the point? Like, the one thing with the MLB All-Star Game is you do get guys that can give full effort, which is unique compared to the other ones because the pitchers are throwing 1 inning. The batters are getting 1 at-bat. So, like, in your 1 to 2 innings of work that you're getting out there, you better give it your all because this is your one chance. But it's still an All-Star Game.
Yeah, so that means what? You are going to watch or no?
Oh, no. No, I'm probably not going to watch.
All right. That's a ringing endorsement.
I gotta get a workout in tonight. I'm going to go to bed early and get some sleep. Maybe I'll catch the last few innings and see how my bet did. But
enthralling. Elijah Herbel says, yeah, maybe.
I mean, when I was a kid, I liked All-Star games.
It was great.
The older I get, it's lost its appeal.
My favorite All-Star Game moment, man, was Bo Jackson hitting leadoff and going yard off of the old-timer Rick Russell in Anaheim.
Everyone's seen that highlight.
It was great. And then Wade Boggs, who hit under 200 homers in his entire career, had a boatload of batting titles, but Wade, 30 beers later, Boggs goes yard as the second batter.
But let me ask you this. What's the most recent All-Star Game memory that you have? The most recent one that stands out in your memory of, wow, that was a cool moment?
It's been years. Probably Griffey.
If there's anyone that could potentially leave some lasting impressions from the All-Star Game, it would be Shohei.
Sure.
Shohei's a special talent. Go pitch 3 strikeouts in your inning and then go hit a home run.
Hit the game winner and then go close her out.
That'd be awesome. That'd be an iconic All-Star Game moment, but I don't know. I'm not in love with the All-Star Game anymore.
It's all right. At least there's a steak and a beer for it.
Go AL.
There we have it.
Home tonight.
Reminder, get buckled up, hands on the wheel, eyes and mind straight ahead. The driver, one job, that's to drive. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety. Talk to you tomorrow on Hail Varsity.